Appreciation for teachers, and if you see a teacher out in the public or see them in their schools, or if you're going to visit the school, I want to thank them on behalf of myself and the board. We do appreciate them, and like I said, without them, without the teachers and all the other support staff, very crucial that this system does run so well. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and call roll and then get on with the presentation.
Daniel?
Here.
Mabry?
Here.
Caruso?
Here.
Jacobs?
Here.
Weathers?
Here.
Hartsfield?
Here.
Noddert?
Here.
7 present, 2 absent.
We do have a quorum, but we are not voting on anything today, but I just want to make the record show that we do have 7 out of 9. So I'll turn it over to Michael at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman of the board, Mrs. Elledge and I have worked for several months on the budget proposal that will be presented this afternoon. I believe the budget proposal reflects the values of the Lawrence County school system. It provides our employees with a substantial increase in wages, addresses academic needs and concerns, and it continues the work of this board with facility improvements and future opportunities. We've also sought information or guidance from our principals and central office staff as we put this together. A few highlights to share with you before Mrs. Elledge will present to you multiple documents, a PowerPoint presentation, the actual budget, and also some information that she pulled from ePlan. We'll be happy to go over any of that with you, but it is a lot of information, so we wanted to give you ample time to look at it before the next board meeting when we will ask you to vote on this. But a few highlights. Salary schedule improvements across the board for all employees, increases in steps for educators that range anywhere from $500 to $750 per year of service, a minimum of a $1 hour raise for support staff and skilled trades, adjustments to the years of service for all employees. We added years 21 through 25 for teachers, and 21 to 25 and 25 beyond for support staff. We made adjustments to the athletic supplements. We have budgeted for more assistance in our athletic fields, percentage increases, and additional supplements for those who are working with our students. The budget reflects more staffing in schools, more support to our students and teachers in the areas of social emotional needs, educational support for our teachers, and facility needs. I'm comfortable stating that this budget proposal reflects the values of this board and your appreciation of our employees, students, and community. And with that, I will ask Mrs. Elledge to present the budget to you.
So thank you, Chairman Caruso, for the kind words there at the beginning. I appreciate that. What we bring to you guys tonight as I present, if you have any questions along the way, just stop me. Be happy to address any questions as we go. So the first slide I just want to throw up here and show you guys a total budgets that we're presenting to you tonight is a little over $77 million. There's multiple budgets there. The general purpose budget is the largest portion of that, which is, I'll get into the details of what makes up the GP budget as we go through this, but $67.1 million. And then we have some other budgets as well that we'll bring to you tonight. Our federal projects, school nutrition. Ms. Simpson is here with the school nutrition budget and an extended day program that make up the remainder of that $77 million. So as Mr. Atkins was just stating, some of the goals of the budget, of course, to address academic learning, social emotional learning. There's some additions to the budget tonight that we'll present to you around the social emotional learning and employee compensation, retention of our employees, that's always important this day and age, instructional supports, and then the continuation of capital projects. And as I said again, some of those are offset with relief and federal funding as we address these goals. So we have provided in this budget additional personnel around those strategic goals of the school system: early literacy, college and career readiness, and supporting the whole child. But then we have also tried to capitalize on the opportunity to improve our academics, the instruction, and to improve our facilities and the maintenance around our facilities. So you'll see those as we get deeper into this. So for our general purpose budget, that $67 million that I was referring to on that very first slide, about $53.5 million of that is made up of the state of Tennessee dollars, the TISA, there in the blue. That is the new funding formula that the state has provided. We're moving away from the BEP. Then local sales tax, property tax, and the other revenues. The other revenues are Tennessee Small Schools Equity dollars that we receive. We put back into teacher salaries that we have provided to teachers from the day we began receiving that. It's been numerous years ago now that we were receiving those dollars. We put that back into our teacher salaries. So of our general purpose revenues, the $67.1 million, the state of Tennessee makes up 80% of that, TISA being 53.5, the small schools equity 429. And then at the local level, we are asking, I'll point this out, sales tax revenues. We are asking within our sales tax numbers for an increase in maintenance of effort by $500,000. The next slide, I'll show you our local sales tax revenue collections over the last several years. You can see there to the far right in FY23, our budget for this current school year, the 22-23 school year, our budget is $6.3 million. You can see right to the left of that in the blue. We are projected, strictly an estimate, but I feel pretty confident about the estimate, that we will collect a little over $9 million. So we are requesting an increase to the maintenance of effort, $500,000, which would put the budget at $6.8 million in our sales tax revenues. What we have historically done with those numbers is we have taken a 5-year average of actual collections and determined what our request and increase would be. So that our actual increase is about $500,000 based on that. So that's where that $500,000 came from. But you can see the trend there of how our collections are really coming in. So the biggest change in our revenues, and I know you guys have probably heard this until you're blue in the face, is around this new funding formula, the Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement. Prior to that being put into law for this upcoming budget, we were operating off of BEP, Basic Education Program. And every student, regardless of their situation, would generate the same dollars. So I've got there just kind of an example. Student A, B, and C, under the BEP formula, it was a flat rate. This is what they generated regardless of where they were in their learning. With the new TISA, it's student-centered. So you may have one student that generates the base amount of the funding formula, $6,860. But then if you have another child that's economically disadvantaged, student B there, and is a 4th grader receiving tutoring services, well, they actually generate significantly more dollars than that student A. So it's really based on the student, individualized for the student. So I just wanted to kind of throw some numbers out there so you can see. We have data. It's amazing, really, some of the spreadsheets and things that the state has given us. No names, obviously, but we can see exactly what every student is generating. If you dig down into, it's a lot of data to sort through, but if you dig down into it, you can determine what every single student at every single school in our district generates for the district.
So what is the percentage, do we know the percentage of economically disadvantaged students in our district?
So let me show you the next slide.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's not the next one. It's this one. So this is our April projections under TISA. And you can see that base, $6,860. Every student's going to generate that 6,860. We have 6,719 students there. 25%, no, I'm sorry, it's not 25%. 2,251 students of that 6,719 are identified as economically disadvantaged for the district.
And Mr. Daniel, that information is pulled by the state based on data that, or forms and completion of forms that we submit to them.
Okay, thank you.
So you can see there the number of students within each element of the formula. It's pretty self-explanatory, really, that under this unique learning one, there are 515 kids that generate 15% more dollars above that base amount of $68.60. So we receive $530,000 for those 515 kids. You know, if you're K-3, the district receives for every K-3 student an additional $500 toward literacy. So the formula generates a little over $1 million there for K-3 literacy.
On the CTE student,
Mhm.
is that additional $5,000?
That's above the base, yes.
So a CTE student would be $12,000
Well, it's $5,000
plus 6,800.
of that 535 number. See that 535? That's
Yeah.
the number of students in the CTE programs, and they're generating $5,000, which would generate $2.6 million.
But that's not above the 6,800.
Yes, it is.
yes.
Yes,
So-
it's above the 6860.
So what would you add to the 6,860? $535 or $5,000?
No, 5,000. 5,000.
But only 535
That's
kids.
the
Correct.
largest amount then per student. Okay.
Yes, it is. Well, and the thing about that is one student may not count as one whole student because it's a portion of their day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Oh.
if I'm taking one CTE class out of a possible 4,
Out of 5 classes, it'd be 20%.
correct,
Okay.
yeah.
But still, that's,
So then it's 20% of the 5,000?
In theory, yes,
Basically, that's what it
Yes.
is.
Mhm.
Okay.
yes.
So why they got that bottom line there, the charter estimated? They're not even gonna,
That would be there are some districts who have charter schools.
but
We do not,
okay.
so there is no generation of dollars there for Lawrence
They
County.
didn't consider homeschooling in this, did they?
No.
There is.
That's a whole nother entity of its own self.
What is included in there as far as homeschooling is our PVA Academy.
That was my next question.
Pioneer
So
Virtual
what
Academy is in
okay.
there, yeah. And as you go down through this, when you see ULN 1, 2, all the way down to 10, the severity of the disability increases as you go down. So that's why you see some high numbers, like unique learning need number 9 is 125%, where there's 123 students in our district that meet that criteria, and there's funding to assist those students and help those students.
And that's strictly state criteria, isn't it?
Can you give us an example of that specifically? Like, no names, but a student, like a ULN student?
One, it could be from, on one, it could be ADHD, might fall in that, but that might, probably not on that one. You might have a reading disability of some sort.
Characteristics of dyslexia is Unit 2.
And then we may or may not be giving additional services to those kids.
We have been giving services. I think now you have more opportunity to provide those services with personnel and other things that may be needed.
So what would be a ULN 10?
That's going to be,
The law here says special education, residential, homebound, or hospital
Okay, so that
service.
would be,
could be, yeah.
that would be like a residential
Yeah. Prior to that, the system, Mrs. Elledge showed you a little bit ago on the BEP, that student generated $8,000 and they needed to be placed somewhere else and it might be $60,000. There wasn't anything there for them. The school system spent that money. This is to help school systems with that as needed.
So, this economically disadvantaged, they're saying about a third of our kids are falling in that category, and these different categories down here is where they're separated out in, or, I mean, how's?
They could be in there. Some of the students could be in those unique learning needs that's in that 2251. There could be.
So how they, I mean, I'm not saying they're branded or anything, but I mean, when economically disadvantaged, how do we say one's economically disadvantaged? How do we do that?
Well, they will turn in forms at the beginning of the year based on family household income, and it would
Based on
be
household income?
Yeah, it would be food stamp eligible, free and reduced lunch, those things. Yeah, which we are working on a process to maybe have more of our students and parents complete that. We do not have 100% participation by parents to complete those forms, and that's something that we're going to address with next school year.
And this is projected to the progression of the year or monthly? Because you said April up there.
Well,
Or is it every month, these numbers?
you want to speak to how they've done that?
So what they have done is, this is actually for every 20 days, they call it one period.
Okay.
So that this is an average
Okay.
of multiple period from the beginning of the school year this year.
Okay.
Under BEP, it was actually only about 4 periods that they
I see.
used. So this is probably a reflection of more accurate data than BEP ever was.
I kind of like that.
Yeah,
Do
it's
you feel
almost
like-
in real time.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this is a fair way to do it?
Oh, I do, yes, I do.
I do too.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. I think when you look at the other one, it was the basic education. And I think when you read this one, it is investment in student achievement. I think that says, I
So
think
it's
that speaks
beneficial
volumes.
for a county like Lawrence County.
Oh, absolutely.
By how much, you think?
Well, I think if you looked at the budget that we were operating on for this school year and what we will operate on next year and what we're proposing for employees and services, I think it's substantial.
So the
Could be-
governor came up with this, or his education department?
This was the General Assembly at the urging of the governor.
In other words, to put it simply, if we have a child moves in here that has multiple disabilities, economically disadvantaged, instead of us picking up maybe the other $150,000 it costs us, the state will pick it up. It won't be just one small set amount.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you were just going through there, what you were doing?
Yeah, that's fine. I think we kind of went through all the different components of the formula without going too deep. I don't think.
Does this make your job a little easier, or?
My job, well, you know, in
Is there more
looking,
numbers to put into more categories now? or
Much
no?
easier.
I mean, just to look at this, it's much easier to sit down and try to talk to someone to explain
Yeah,
the formula.
yeah,
You know, the BEP had 140-something different components
Exactly, yeah.
that it was so convoluted
Yeah.
that it was even hard for me to understand that works in it every day, much less trying to sit down and have a conversation with someone about it. So,
we do need to speak to a couple of things on here. Concentrated poverty, I think I shared with you in the weekly update. As the demographics of the county change, concentrated poverty, that's Title I eligible schools. Right now, as you can see, concentrated poverty, the number of students impacted by that is the total number of students that are in the system. If a school does not meet the criteria, that school comes off And that's where Mrs. Elledge and I are concerned as the demographics of the county change, that we may lose one or two schools. As we lose those schools, we lose funding. So we have to be very careful with that as well. And then our CTE that Dr. Mabry mentioned, this year only will be $5,000. In the coming years, that can change and be $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. But they have made it very clear to us in meetings, it will not be $5,000. So if you took that 535 and said times 3,000, then we're looking at nearly $1 million loss with that as the state adjusts TISA. And so that's another reason to be cautious in what we're doing until we get a better handle on how that's going to look.
So, one more comment on this, and I'll be quiet. So, the way this one is here, and there'd be more money per student. Does that help? Is that what's helping fund extra teachers? Is that what that's going to do?
Well, we have prepared for a decline in funding until we know how it's going to look. We have prepared for that. It would, yes, it would going forward.
Okay.
We did not take this budget and work it all the way to the last penny, understanding, one, this is the first year that this is in the state of Tennessee, and things are going to be tweaked and adjusted as it goes. And we did not want to get the board over the barrel, so to speak, and have to start laying off folks and changing as the state changes the formula. Does that answer your question, Ms. Hartsfield?
Yeah.
Well, does that mean like a Title I school could come off in 20 days and then back on down the road? No.
And Mrs. Elledge handles that, not Mrs. Elledge, Mrs. Ridgway, and she has put in some waivers. We have about three schools that are close that we're monitoring, and we've asked for an appeal or a waiver. We feel like there's more students in that school. We just have not gotten the information. For the last couple of years, Mrs. Simpson has worked well in making sure that every student in Lawrence County eats breakfast and lunch free, and so our data collecting has dropped off a little bit. We hope to stimulate that in the fall with a new format.
So since you brought the free breakfast and dinner, if it should happen that a school drops off, would that mean they would have to go back to paying for that, or can we still provide that for our students with this budget?
Well, there are two separate things, I believe, and Ms. Simpson, if you feel like I don't represent this correctly, community eligible program is where we have right now that everybody's allowed to eat. But if we lose that in the district or at one or two schools, I'm presuming they would have to go back to paying for their lunches or reduce lunches.
Yes, sir. With CEP, we're locked in for one school year. We're planning to do it again for next year. And there's a possibility we could extend it for 2 more years past next year. It will be dependent upon some factors. And then once we reach the end of that 4-year period, then we would have to reevaluate it.
Thank you.
So those are the revenues, and I'll move on to the expenditure side of things, how we spend our money. I always throw this slide up here because it's always fascinating to me how we spend our dollar. So for every dollar that the district spends, 80 cents of every dollar goes towards salary and benefits. So this budget proposes about $54 million towards salary and benefits for our employees. And then you can see the red and the yellow and the blue, kind of the purple and the gold there. The other things, contracted services, supplies and materials, equipment, capital projects, payment to debt service, that makes up the other 20%. But it's always intriguing to me that we spend that much of our green towards salary and benefits toward our people. So,
What does debt service encompass? What do we owe for?
So there's 2 payments that we make, and there's a slide in here a little later, but one is the EESI loan, and the second one is the ESG project. So we make, that's what that $1.1 million.
How many more years do we have?
Well, I don't remember them off the cuff, but I do have the dates in the slide of when our final payment is when we get there. So if you'll bear with me a little bit, we'll get there. So within these budgets, we do have some additional staffing. I've listed them all there. I don't mind reading them, or you can read them for yourself. Dean of Students, 2 deans of students at Leoma and South Lawrence, a Summertown Middle School principal, by establishing the middle school there as a separate school. We did put into this budget 6 classroom teachers to address our increase in population, and then 4 special ed teachers based on just going back to that TISA funding model of you seeing that the state has provided us dollars to address a lot of those needs. So we want to put that back into those departments as well. Ms. Watson has requested an engineering teacher program at Summertown High School, so that's being proposed in here. We do have academic ELA and math lead positions, 4 of those at the district level. 1 guidance counselor at Florida High School that would be transitioning from a part-time into a full-time position, giving that school a full-time position rather than just a part-time position. And then 6 special educational assistants, a physical therapy assistant, and I'll put a sidebar out there with that position. We're paying for that position through contracted services. So we have ran the numbers to determine that it's more cost effective for us to bring that person on as our employee rather than paying that as a contract. So we are making that request. An additional nurse at Lawrence County High School, 2 mental wellness counselors, and then 5 bus attendants. So the cost of all of those positions combined is right at $1.9 million.
Mr. Atkins, what is the ELA, academic ELA and math lead?
Those are positions that we're hoping to develop and put into the schools where these leads that are considered coaches by many districts will work closely with our teachers on a more regular basis than what we're doing right now. So they would go in and assist teachers with curriculum, lesson plans, addressing whatever is that teacher might struggle with. Right now, the focus is going to be on the lower grades as we start this. It's a possibility that they may move up, but the lower grades with some of the concerns we have there.
So these lead positions, is that like at a supervisor level pay scale or teacher level?
No, they will be 11-month employees that will, but they are not supervisors. They're not in administration. They are just going in and working with the schools in needs. But we will have a job description to share with the board so you kind of have an idea. That's been something that we've been working on, but we put it on the back burner as we work the budget.
And then on the 5 bus attendants, is this these are new above and beyond than what we currently have?
Yes, sir.
And we have the buses to go with them?
Yes, sir. And these are to be on buses where Mr. Rogers and his staff report a high need, high demand buses for assistance to the drivers, multiple issues there.
So for proposed salary increases, I've got a couple of different slides. For our certified staff, you guys are aware that the governor passed, he put $125 million into the state budget for educator salary increases. And so I put the slide there, we as a district here in the goal, this is within the TISA calculations, provided us to show that we are required to give of that $125 million, $869,000 toward a salary increase for our teachers. So what we're proposing to you tonight is just salaries, no salary and benefits, but just salaries, $2.5 million is what we are proposing in salary increases. So we are well above the required amount that the state is requiring. And you can see there, just kind of the calculation is real simple. As a district, we have 6,719 students of a statewide student population of 966,000. So it's strictly a calculation to say, this is what you are required to give. Of that, we are a percentage of that 966,000, and we're required to give 869. And I put in that slide just so you can see with the law what beginning teacher salaries are required to be as we move forward. Right now, for the upcoming year, the beginning teacher salary will be $42,000. That's the new state law. And then we have to make a point to get to $50,000 by the 26-27 school year. So we are moving toward that. The next slide that we'll show you are the changes to our salary schedule. We did add $3,000 to the beginning salary scale. So what we're proposing to you tonight is July 1 new beginning teacher salary of $44,040. So going back to the slide before, we are required to be at 42, and we will be at 44.40. The other changes to the salary schedule, we're excited about this. It's things that I think educators have asked for numerous years, and we've never been able to financially afford it, to be quite honest, is to add the additional steps. We've started with 21 to 25. Right now, the way the salary schedule is established, you step from 0 to 20, and after 20 years, you're stepped out. There is no other salary increase unless we give it to all. So we have added those additional steps to step 25. The other thing that we have done is we have equalized the steps. Right now, the current schedule, you may have step 1 to 2 be only $10, and then step 3 to 4 be $1,200. We've equalized that. So every step, for anyone that holds a bachelor's or a bachelor's plus, it's $500 a step every year, all the way down to 25. If you hold an advanced degree, it's $750 a step, every step. So those steps are equalized. So the cost to do all of that, salary and benefit cost for us to do that, is $3.1 million. Any questions around that?
And just for the board's knowledge, in 2020, I believe the starting salary in Lawrence County was around $38,000. I think that's right. Some of my numbers, it was around $38,000, and we're looking at taking that to $44,000 next year. And I think that reflects on the board and your efforts to improve salaries in Lawrence County.
Mouse is not wanting to work. So on our support staff, skilled trade groups, this current budget year that we're operating under now, we restructured our salary schedules to try to break free from everyone made the same amount. We wanted to offer and provide people with years of experience. So we're kind of expanding on that this year. We're adding additional steps of 16 to 20, and then 21 to 25, and then if you are at 25 plus. So we're excited to propose that to the district as well, to our staff, to show years of experience. The hourly rate that we pay these employees will be determined based upon those years of experience. So if I'm someone that's got 20 years of experience, I'm going to make more than someone who hired in yesterday. So that's a good thing that the district has been able to offer, I feel like. We did do an hourly rate increase to all staff, that base hourly amount of $1 an hour. Anyone that has those additional steps, it's above the $1 an hour. All of those, there's a budget proposal that was in the Google Drive that I've provided you guys. We can go into that in just a bit if you want to look at that, but all of that is in that packet. There's 393 people in this budget that are considered non-certified staff, and to do all of that is a little over $1 million, $1.1 million. So there are some proposed supplement and stipend changes The athletic supplements, that was another thing that we were able to look and address. Mr. Atkins had multiple meetings with athletic directors and coaches and people of that nature around, and one of the big requests was to have additional staff to help with coaching responsibilities. So we have added additional coaches at both the middle school and the high school setting to provide a lot of assistant coaches in some of these sports where there was only one coach drawing a supplement. We have also increased the dollar amount of athletic supplements in some areas. Some have remained the same. So the cost to do that is around $260,000. And again, in that budget proposal that you have, I think it's actually the very last page of that proposal, has that breakdown of the things that have been added, the changes that have been made. There are some administrative supplements, restructuring our admin supplements to reflect more of like a student-based model similar to the TISA formula. So we're looking to add admin supplements based on the number of students that are in each school building. So that's reflective in here as well. The cost to do that is about $35,000. And then we have a couple of foremans in our bus garage and our maintenance that requests from each of those departments have been made to pay a small stipend to those foremans for their additional job duties. So a $2,400 cost estimate to make that happen. And then as far as employee benefits, I have not received any estimates regarding health insurance for January of '24 yet. Typically, it's about July before I hear those numbers. So this budget does have a 5% mid-year increase. Could be 2. I could be able to come back to you and say, hey, we've got some budget savings there. But I have budgeted a 5% mid-year increase, and that estimate is around $375,000. So that's reflected in here as well. Here's the slide around the energy savings, Mr. Mabry. So we make 2 payments into the Lawrence County Debt Service Fund each year, and you can see there the EESI loan, final payment in November of 2032 of $277,000, and then the bond payment, which is the ESG program, is $848,000, and our final payment for that is in May of 2034. So.
A question on that. Is this the one that several years ago, what were they called?
ESG.
ESG?
Yes, sir.
And it was what, how many million was it?
It's about a $17 million project.
And so this is the one that's almost paid off?
Well, it's not almost paid off.
But I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
But yes, yes.
Getting closer.
We're getting closer.
Because I talked to Mr. Jones about that. He said it was paying itself off. I mean, what I'm talking about, over the
In the
savings.
savings. In the cost avoidance, yes.
Good.
Yeah, that's what I was just supposed to ask, Mr. Atkins, if you could, maybe in the next meeting or two, give us a breakdown of what cost savings that we have seen, what's our average cost savings per month that we're seeing with this, just so we can, since this is now fresh on our mind, how much we're paying for it.
Sure.
So in academic learning instructional supports, you guys at this last board meeting did approve the math adoption, and 6 years of the math adoption, 2 of those years we can fund out of our ESSER dollars, some of our federal dollars, so we can roll some of those dollars into federal, but there's a portion of it that we have to pay out of our general purpose budget. So 4 of the 6 years equates to about $800,000, so that's included in this budget. And then some of the requests that we received from principals and different departments was to increase the instructional dollars that we provide to the schools every year. Copy paper, cost of that nature have gone up tremendously over the last few years. So we are looking to increase those allocations that we provide out to the schools to make those types of purchases. So So that's included in here as well. And then we give a library allocation to each school for them to continue to update their school library inventories. So we've increased that budget as well. That library allocation, I think we increased by $10,000. The instructional allocation, I don't remember it off the cuff what my numbers are. I think it was somewhere around $20,000 that we increased to assist the schools with copy paper and all their supplies that they need. And then some additional things that are included in this budget. This budget does reflect 5 buses. As you know, the cost of a bus has gone up from Mr. Rogers, $130,000 a bus. So there's $650,000 in this budget for the purchase of 5 buses in this budget cycle.
And I will say this, my first year as director, that June, July, I remember signing off on 2 buses that Mrs. Elledge brought to me, and I want to say they were around $98,000 to $101,000 in 2023. And you can see, and there's projections from Mr. Rogers and some of his folks that this price is going to continue to climb for the next several years.
So we have lots of aging phone systems at various schools. We have through the school building programs at Summertown and at Kaufman, and I think there are some others. I just don't recall off the top of my head, Mr. Hobbs. But we have done some new phone systems in the district. We are proposing to do five more school sites at $20,000 to put in new phone systems in some of our other schools. And then continuing a mower rotation to keep new mowers, rotating the old out and the new in for our maintenance department. The purchase of three new mowers, $25,000, and then mopping machines for our custodial staff, 5 of those at $18,000. And then with capital improvements, we do have some dollars, $1.8 million in this budget for capital improvements. Gymnasium bleachers at Lawrence County High School, lots of doors at various schools for safety purposes. The remainder of the roofing projects at New Prospect and Lawrence County High School that we could not fund out of our ESSER dollars. Then we have the gymnasium electrical work at Loretta High School in the old gymnasium, and a multi-purpose facility at Summertown High School. And then we are looking at doing the resurfacing of bleachers at Summertown High School as well. So within that kind of concludes the general purpose budget, the $67 million. Within the other budgets, our federal budgets are really kind of a continuation of our existing staff. We're not looking to reduce staff or do anything different. The only difference within our title budgets is the RTI coordinators. They are now funded out of the TISA formula, so we have requested to transfer them over into our general purpose budget and out of our federal title budgets. So there is a change reflected there. But you can see there of the title budgets, the different. Title I is the economically disadvantaged, the concentrated poverty numbers. That generates just shy of $2 million. Our Title I budget is right at $2 million. Title IIA is professional development for the district, $314,000. Title III is our ESL students, English as a second language. I don't recall the number of students that we have in the district. It's around 60, isn't it, I believe?
ESL?
Yes.
It's jumped up to 71.
Oh, wow.
71 students.
Yeah, so there's a small pot of money in the federal budgets that is generated for those students. Of course, we're providing services for those students well above that $7,900 there. And then Title IV is related to health and wellness and of our students, so it generates about $159,000.
So federal budget will go away and it'll be replaced by this Tesla, right?
No.
No.
Okay.
Federal dollars, remember.
Okay,
No.
We made this start decline.
okay.
And then the other portion of our federal budgets is our special ed department. They receive IDEA dollars. It's a continuation of personnel as well. We do have a small amount of contracted services for occupational therapy, physical therapy, those types of things within that special education budget. But we have a Part B, which is our 6 to 21-year-olds of $1.6 million, and then our preschool, which is 3 to 5-year-olds, that generates $56,000. And then our Carl Perkins budget is a career and technical federal budget that we receive as well.
Is that up or down from last year? Carl Perkins.
Carl Perkins this year, I think, was around $150,000, so it's down.
So it's down?
Yes, sir. It's down. And a lot of times what we will see is these are preliminary allocations from the federal government that they will send. And then come July or August, we'll get a new allocation. And maybe there's districts that haven't spent their dollars and they will reallocate those dollars to other districts. I anticipate
definitely
seeing that
spend ours,
increase.
don't
I anticipate seeing that increase, but right now these are our preliminary numbers.
Do we give any money to Head Start?
No, you're not. And then the other budget, I don't know why this mouse is, okay. The other budget that I wanted to bring before you tonight is the extended school day budget. We've got 5 schools that operate before and after school, just after school care for our students. Crockett, Lawrenceburg Public, New Prospect, Leoma, and Summertown. So each of those schools have a budget. They're independent, they're self-supporting, and you can see they're $144,000 for those. And it's just paying personnel to work with those students before and after school at each of those schools. So I feel good about this budget. It supports the goals. It is a balanced budget. And we remain committed to making our schools the best academically and making them physically attractive while we do it.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll just add, I think as I began, I told you the value that the board is placing on personnel and facilities in this community, and I think this budget reflects that. It's an investment in our people. It's also an investment of investing in making sure that folks outside of Lawrence County are interested in Lawrence County, and we're competitive in many, many areas with our demographics, our clientele. Salary has always been one that's lagged behind a little bit, and this budget helps move us into a more equal playing field when it comes to salary.
Mr. Atkins, I know, I think probably go back to the general budget. I know you had made mention of doors for safety concerns. Mr. Atkins, you and I have talked, and you know, we've got some schools in this county who needs updates for cameras and what other, and it's, I guess my question is, I know Governor Lee has stated that he's going to release money to school systems to cover SROs. It's his wish to have SROs, which we're already ahead of the game there. But is that money that he's fixing to release for safety, is that included in this budget, or we're going to look at something?
Well, there is one, the safety grant money that has been coming down for years, separate from BEP, is included in this, which is around $150,000 for Lawrence County. The 2 other proposals that the governor has, one is one-time dollars, and then the SROs is recurring dollars for a number of years. And we will be applying for the one-time grants and the SRO dollars. I've had some meetings with county officials regarding those dollars and feel good about those meetings and the conversations that we had. But we have expedited our camera systems. We are looking at adding and correcting some door issues throughout the county. Those are top of our list as far as safety.
So the camera system projects you've expedited, meaning finding getting quotes and getting that stuff, the lead times and all that, getting that kicked off?
Our school submitted information to Mr. Tucker, and so he has that information. We're waiting for some cameras to come in, but in our safety dollars that come in every year, there's a portion of that set aside for more cameras. There's some dollars set aside for capital projects that include doors and cameras.
I hate to get us too far off in the weeds, but we're on the topic. And from a visit to the schools that I've done over the year, you know, we've got one type of system at Lawrence County High School, we've got another type of system and other types of cameras at Loretta and another type at Summertown. Is this push, or it's my desire, I think, to ask, let's get on the same page all the way across the board. Do we have a monitoring company, or is that something that our IT department?
No, we're already way ahead. We have the same system at every school now.
The same?
Every school has exactly the same system.
It's just our cameras are out.
Cameras, yeah.
The cameras are different, model cameras at the school. The security system is the same at every school.
Yeah. So the upgrade.
Working with each school to see where their needs is at. That's when he talked about Mr. Tucker. Mr. Tucker's sent out to all the principals and the SROs to get together to see where their most vulnerable places are at. So they've submitted that back to us, and we are already working towards replacing those cameras.
Yeah. Kind of give you an idea, the Avigilon camera system, that's the company that we're using. We're moving towards those cameras. I was in with an SRO yesterday and looking at the cameras, and as the cameras are up on display, as an individual pauses long enough for a read, a blue box will pop on that person. And the SRO said, I can capture that and follow this person throughout the building. And that capability, that technology is in all of our schools. So we're moving in that direction.
Every school, elementary, junior high, high school, all of us.
Yeah, it's just going to take us some time to get there. I mean, the size of our schools, the places that they want cameras, licensure, there's some things that technology has worked on to expedite that process.
Thank you.
Can you monitor those all from here?
Yes. And Mr. Snyder, our plan is to eventually have that in the hands of the 911 board, sheriff's office, other folks, dispatch, so that emergency situations arrive, we have communication from those who are going into our buildings.
So I'm going to let Ms. Kinlan present her school nutrition budget.
Good evening. So you have our budget in front of you. Remember that we are a self-supporting budget, so if we don't make the money, we don't have the money to spend. It has the following information, so it does have the proposed raises that Mr. Atkins and Ms. Ellis discussed for our staff as well. The revenue is based on 170 serving days. We are planning to continue with CEP, which is the community eligible provision that Mr. Atkins referred to a little bit earlier. That allows every child, regardless of their income, to eat breakfast and lunch at no charge. Although we don't get reimbursed at the free rate for every child, there's a formula that we use, and it's a percentage that we get. Reimbursement rates have not been set yet for this upcoming school year. It's possible they could be lowered a little bit, but we probably won't find that information out until July. Under revenue, we have increased a la carte. We have found that because kids don't have to pay for their meals, they have a little bit more money to spend on extras, and so that's increased this year. Under expenses, the two biggest increases are food costs. Right now, we have our bids out right for food and non-food. I don't know what to expect when we receive those. We've had a large increase in pricing this year, just like when you go to the grocery store. I'm sure you're seeing an increase in your groceries. So I've padded our food service line item just a little bit for food, not knowing what to expect until we open those bids. And then food service equipment, we have several large pieces of equipment to purchase next year, including a freezer, and then we're replacing some serving lines as well. Just like the buses, our cost have increased for equipment, so we've added that to the line item as well. So normally I present a balanced budget to you, but next year we're planning to spend some of our fund balance, which we have, to cover the cost of the food and for the equipment. Are there any questions about the budget?
Yeah, so I don't know that I fully understand. I mean, I understand your statement that if you don't make it, you can't spend it. But everybody here is on free and reduced lunch, so how are you making money?
So community eligible provision is a program from USDA, and if we have a certain number of directly certified kids, we qualify for it. They take that number and then multiply it by 1.6, and that's the percent of reimbursement that we get at the free rate, and then the remaining is at the paid rate. So we're getting our money from reimbursements for the meals that we serve. But it's not collecting.
This program is reimbursing you for the meals that you serve.
Yes, sir. We're not collecting any money from the students for their meals. We're collecting it from the government.
So are we getting 100% reimbursement, or are we going in the, are we blacker rated, if you will?
So right now, our claiming rate, we're claiming 72.9% at the free rate, and then 27.2%, or 0.2% at the paid rate. So for every 100 children we feed, we're getting to claim like 72 at the free rate, and the remaining 27% at the paid rate. And there's a difference in those reimbursement rates. So financially, to be able to do CEP, we have to be able to afford it.
And I don't mean to keep dragging this meeting and all this stuff, but that's what I'm still not understanding. We've got everybody in this county on the free. So how are we only doing 75 and getting reimbursed for 75%? And then the other 25%, we're only getting, I'm not tracking, maybe I'm just.
The best way to understand it with CEP is everybody eats at no charge, but that doesn't mean we get to claim everybody at the free rate.
Right, so we're giving lunches and breakfast.
Yes, sir.
And free of charge to every student in our system.
Yes,
But we can't turn around to the program and say, we had 6,000 students and get totally reimbursed for all 6,000 plus of those, or 12,000, because we've done breakfast and lunch.
We're getting that percentage, so a certain percentage is at the free rate and a certain percentage is at the paid rate. So together with those reimbursements, we have to financially be able to afford it, which we can.
So we're still in the black.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we have a fund balance to use as well in case we need to. That's why I'm using it for equipment and food for next year, because I'm anticipating increases in food costs for next year.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What is that? You said pay rate. What is the average pay rate now? I mean,
For starting employees,
I thought you was talking about the meal when you said.
I'm
pay.
sorry. We're not charging anything for the
But-
meals for students.
Right, but, okay.
Is that
What
you're
were
asking?
they, what was those rates before we got the free?
Prior to COVID, when we received the waivers, it was $1.75 for K through, or elementary, and then $2 for middle and high school, which is still some of the cheapest rates around in existing other districts.
I'm sorry, Ken, and I don't mean to, but
I'm sorry.
that just reminded me of another conversation that I had, and maybe this has been corrected or maybe it's not, but is the system that we have in place, and this may not be a budget question, but does a kindergartner walk through the line and come away with 4 chicken nuggets, and then an 18-year-old senior walk through the line and come away with 4 chicken nuggets?
It depends on the item that we're serving, and there are certain requirements that we have for each one. So chicken nuggets, it takes 5 of those, so the kindergartner would get 5, the high schooler would get 5. There are certain requirements that we need for everybody. We offer the high schoolers more fruits and vegetables and more grains than we do the elementaries. We still have to meet saturated fat and calories and
Yeah,
and sodium and all that.
yeah, I know, I mean, there's rules that you have to follow, I
Yes.
understand. I don't know that I agree that an 18-year-old male is gonna get full off 5 nuggets when a 5-year-old kindergartner is gonna get full off 5 nuggets. But anyway, that's on above and beyond anybody in this room.
At one point in some notes that I had in speaking engagements and talking about the school system and the ladies, I have in there at one time a sausage patty around 17 cents, and inflation, supply chain, fuel costs, and all had that around 51 cents.
Right now, it's a sausage and biscuit, you're probably looking at a cost of between about 58 to 61 cents. Once you add a fruit and vegetable to, or fruit or vegetable to that, like a juice, you're looking at about 26 cents. So just with those 3 items, you're looking at over 80 cents just for the cost not including labor and supplies for the non-food items.
Yeah. And that wasn't the case several years ago.
Correct.
Yeah.
Since COVID, it's changed everybody's world, and we're paying more for food than we've ever been through.
Well, I think y'all do a great job.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Are we still the largest employee in Lawrence County? By how much do we know?
To my knowledge, we have around 1,150
Employees.
maybe. We're counting bus drivers, educational assistants, teachers, food service.
Food, yeah.
We're around 1,100, I'd say, around 1,100.
That's a question that comes up a lot of times, when you're looking at talking with different people.
So one last question, I'm sorry, Ms. Gilman. When you said self-supporting or self-sustaining, is the salaries that you pay your employees coming out of what you're earning?
Yes, sir.
Or is it coming out?
So that's why I said if we don't make the money, we don't have.
Is that in this proposal? What their, our cafeteria staff,
It is.
in the email? I don't.
Flip down here to it. Right here is
Support,
the
okay.
proposed, and there's one, you've got 3 different categories. You have your cafeteria worker, assistant manager, and your manager, all reflected on the salary schedule.
And I think, going back to 2020, I think everyone in the cafeteria, was it 1068 or 1078?
It was 1078, I believe, Mr. Atkins.
And Mrs. Simpson has worked to get that up. As you can see, the beginning salary, if you come in and work one day with us, at one time was the same as if you worked 10 years. Now they're differentiated that so that our folks who have been with us for years are rewarded at a higher rate as well. She's worked very hard to, and very well to make that happen with her budget.
So is the first E the hourly rate, and then the second E, what were their?
That's your
yearly
annual.
Annual income?
And down below that, where you see the 7 and the 185,
Yes.
7 hours per day for 185 days. Yes, sir.
And those different tiers are for those years, okay? the
And
years
yeah,
of
you can see
service.
the years of experience that have been added. So her range for a cafeteria worker is anywhere between $13 to $14.50 an hour.
Which is, I think now, competitive with local, because I saw something in the newspapers seeking help, and it was like $12 an hour. So Ms. McKinley has done a good job of making her department attractive to outside workers. Come join the school system.
So not what went into differentiating between what a cafeteria worker gets paid as opposed to what a custodian gets paid, as opposed to 11 months, all these different blocks that we've got. How did we determine this is what they get paid?
Well, we've really tried to address just looking at surrounding counties with school systems. I think just in the cafeteria world, just what you could go out and make in kind of those nutrition areas here, a fast food restaurant, things of that nature. With an educational assistant, we've looked at surrounding counties to kind of see what the going rate is. Same with the bus driver. We've tried to make that more attractive here. With a bus driver, some districts pay insurance benefits, some do not.
So just a comparison to other districts
Yeah.
and what other districts are paying around us. And
We did.
Trying to stay competitive, make sure.
Trying
I
to
mean, I
stay-
wasn't questioning
Oh, no.
saying that we had it wrong. I was just curious as to how
Yeah.
we.
And we added $1. We added $1 per hour to the base. So that 0 to 5, everyone in this proposal is $1 more than they were last year.
And when you look at Lawrence County among the 16 South Central Core counties, we are the second largest behind Murray County in operation cost. So, it is what you can afford to and how you can do that. But I would think, just looking at this and where it was, we have folks now in the cafeteria making $14.50 an hour, which is almost $4 more than they were making 3 years ago.
So do we know what a beginning McDonald's worker makes?
It really depends on where you go, Mr. Nutter. In town, last year I contacted them, and I think depending on experience, it was about $12 to $13.
So we're competitive with that, though?
Yes.
Okay. And your budget reflects everything except energy cost, like electricity, lights, building cost.
Ours covers all of our food, labor, and supplies.
Okay. Excludes the building and the lights and
Utilities.
electricity and all
Yes,
this. Water.
the general purpose budget takes
The
care of
general
all
purpose budget.
utilities, insurance, insurance and work comp, and
Okay.
all those insurances are paid
Those
out
are
of the
just
general purpose.
questions, that
Yeah.
comes up in a conversation. You're doing a great job.
Any other questions? Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other further comments, questions, concerns? Before we adjourn, we got a LECA representative here. Do you have any questions or comments or concerns about the budget that you're seeing? At this point, now, you probably will later in the system when the insurance comes out, but at this time,
That's been a lot of the questions that we received, is if anyone know information about the insurance and things like that, because we hear a lot of questions where people have to have tests and different things like that, and all the expenses, and they're just concerned, if their insurance goes up a lot.
I can tell you, this is the first year that I've been in this role that I haven't heard something from the state or someone to kind of give us an idea about insurance. I haven't heard the first report about insurance, any discussion about insurance. Hopefully, as Ms. Ellis says, by next month into July, we'll at least get something to kind of give us an idea. And that just hasn't happened this year, and I don't know the reason for that. It just hasn't happened.
That's true. Usually you hear something by now, and CEA didn't have a lot of information at that time.
very well. Any other questions, comments?
One other comment, and I guess I'll make it offline, Mr. Atkins, and we can discuss it later, but at a previous board meeting, there was a policy that we talked about. Every position had to have a job description written. Do you recall that meeting and that policy that we brought up? So with that being said, I'd like to have access and see some of these skilled trade salaries, and what determines the maintenance, what differentiates maintenance 1, 2, and 3, what differentiates between second class and first class mechanic, technology support specialist 1 and 2, network administrator. I'd just like to see where those job descriptions and how we're making those differentiations.
So I'll just say that we've shared out a Google Drive with each of you guys that has the presentation that was on the screen tonight. There's like 100 and something page document that's got line items of every budget. Feel free to peruse through. If you have any questions, reach out. Be glad to answer any questions. At the end of that is the salary schedules that I think Mr. Atkins has probably already shared with you, but you can take a look at those and have those in that document as well. The other thing in the drive is the April TISA estimate, so you can kind of take a look at that, any of the details around that as well. So if there's any questions, we'll be happy to address those. But We do plan to put this before you guys at the May meeting and ask for approval in May. Normally, the process is around the first part of June, pending your approval, we will take it down to the Budget Committee, County Government Budget Committee, and make our presentation there. If it goes through Budget Committee, it'll go before the full commission sometime in June, and we'll have a budget come July 1. So, thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to put this out here to you tonight, and hopefully it's something that you can be proud of.
Good luck.
Mr.
Thank you.
Atkins, have you talked, in your conversations with county officials, you talk with, kind of give County Executive Morgan an idea of what, I mean, you feel like they're going to accept what we're proposing?
Yeah, I've met with County Executive Morgan probably 4 or 5 times, and then last week or the week before, Mrs. Elledge and I met with him and his finance officer and had a good conversation about the budget and what we're proposing. He's been very receptive to what we're doing in Lawrence County. He understands what we're doing. I've also had a meeting with the sheriff about some possibility of additional funds there to expedite even more the safety in our schools, and both of those have been positive conversations.
We feel good when they present it before the county commission that they accept it.
We'll feel good when it's approved by this board and then goes to the budget committee, and they're usually the ones that if they have any questions, they bring it up. But we've tried to stay in close contact with them all along to say, here's what we're doing, we're asking for money, and here's why, and we're going to show you why we're going to ask for more money. And they've been very receptive to our needs.
Thank you, sir.
Make a motion, meeting adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.